Hi, everyone. Welcome to Relatively Famous, the podcast where our guests are relatives of famous people. I'm Chip White, and my famous relative is Vanna White, hence Relatively Famous. On this episode, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants because our guest is someone I've never really met, and don't know a lot about him. I know his brother really well. His brother has been considered as the first male supermodel of the 80s, and an actor. His brother, and has an amazing story also, which I want you to Google Hoyt Richards to find out Hoyt's backstory. But the cool thing is today we have his brother, Christian Hoyt.
Relatively Famous podcast with Chip White.
I'd like to welcome Christian Hoyt. Christian, welcome today.
Hey, glad to be here.
So Christian, and a little bit in the opening, I met your brother in 2016 at the Beaufort International Film Festival. We both had films there. My sister said, you've got to meet this guy. I've been talking to him about cults, which is a whole nother story. And
he helped your nephew, right?
Yes, he was talking to Vanna about my nephew, and we had this connection, man. He's just a super nice guy. And when I approached him about the show, he goes, I got just the brother for you. You got to meet my brother, Christian. So tell me a little bit about the family and who Christian Hoyt is.
Sure. So my father and mother moved around a lot at the beginning of their lives. So they were like 4 different places for the first 8 years of their marriage. And then after they had 4 children, they had moved to Pennsylvania, which was kind of like going to be their final stop. They kind of settled there. Everything was going well, but my mother had an affinity. She wanted to have additional children, kind of wanted to mix another girl. That didn't play out. She had myself and tried again, had another boy. So the family started with 2 daughters and then 2 boys and then 2 additional boys. But what that left was a pretty big gap. So my brother, John, who everyone knows as Hoyt Richards, is actually 6 years older than I am. And then I have a little brother who's 2 years younger than I am. So there's 6 of us. I'm the 5th. But really, my little brother and I kind of formed another little family because by the time I was 5, my older sister was going off to college. So the 2 of us kind of grew up most of the time, just the 2 of us.
So are you, 6 kids. Well, are you still a close family? I know that Hoyt had always said you guys used to, or still do, summer in Nantucket.
We do, yeah. So, I mean, I think that every person within the 6, there's different relationships and there's a little bit of factions, to be honest. I mean, I would say that three of the kids, the middle 3 kids, my brother 3, child 3, child 4, John, who's Hoyt Richards, and myself are closer than the 2 sisters and the younger brother who tend to be together as well, which is just the way kind of things work well within families. But yeah, we're very close. I mean, 4 of us still live in Pennsylvania. My one sister lives across the street from me. So my oldest sister. So I can't get much closer than that. But yeah, so we definitely spend a lot of time together still. But I speak more often with Hoyt, John, my brother, than I do with the others.
So do you call him John or do you call him Hoyt?
Well, I clearly call him John, yeah, because I am Hoyt, to be honest. Like all of my friends call me Hoyt, so that would not work out. That'd be like calling myself. So
it's pretty funny.
Yeah, so definitely John, because when all my friends refer to me the exact same way. That was just when you have a short last name, it kind of becomes what people refer to you as.
Yeah. Now, Hoyt, this is what he told me. He goes, not only was I a model, but Christian was a model. Truth?
You mean, bits and pieces. Let's be clear. It's not a very long or glorious career, but because of John's involvement, John became friends with Bruce Weber early in his career. So Bruce had interest in my little brother and me, and I would say my little brother Garth probably had a little bit more of a version of a career. I spent I think about 6 months living in New York trying to do it. But I kind of did bits and pieces. I had one really fun opportunity when I was in college to do a Calvin Klein shoot with Christy Turlington in Miami for 10 days. And I remember I made $10,000, and I was like, it was the most money ever. And I quickly spent all that money, by the way. I think I bought, which is something so short-sighted. I bought a stereo and CDs. That was one thing. And then I got a vacation to see my cousin in Hawaii. And soon that money was gone.
Was it something you didn't want to pursue, or I know that you ended up in the family business?
I think modeling is something that pursues you more than you pursue it. I mean, you can try to pursue modeling, but that's not really going to work itself out. You need people to be interested in your look in that particular time. Initially, I had Bruce as my, pushing for me, and Bruce did that shoot in Calvin Klein shoot, so he asked for me to be there. But after I started actually working and not being, spending the summers in Nantucket being, in the sun and being tan and so forth, my, modeling career, at that time, that was a big thing to be tan, and that you can't be tan when you're working in an office. So that it ended fairly soon thereafter. But I mean, I had a couple of fun things. I got a deal in Details magazine. But again, these are people pursuing me. I really don't know how successful it is as a business plan to pursue modeling. I'm not sure how. I mean, it's just such an difficult to, people just picking and choosing faces. It's tough.
Yeah. I love the way you put that, not sure how of a business plan it is to pursue modeling. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, since modeling wasn't what you pursued, what business did you pursue? What is it that you do now, Christian?
Yeah, so our father had a business. He was an engineer, and so he spent time working as an engineer, worked for GE and Sperry Univac back in the day. This is in the 60s, so that's how long those companies have been around. And then he decided that he had he had 5 children, and then he was anticipating a 6th child, so he didn't want to move anymore because those companies kept moving him. And so he decided that he would start his own business, and he bought a franchise, and he got involved in payroll. Not very exciting, but it pays the bills, and it's got an interesting design. So with payroll, you have a lot of recurring business. People need to be paid on a consistent basis. So that's what sold him. He built that business up for a while, and then when I joined him, kind of as I thought I was going to be just kind of helping him when I graduated from college, he said, I really need your help. I'm like, sure. I'm not, I didn't get my job. I was going to be a teacher. I had a history degree from college. I had gotten a job 1 year in the future. Somebody else was like, well, you don't have a job now, but you work for me. And 33 years later, that's what I do. So I own that company now.
And what is the company? What do you guys do? I mean,
so it's called Pay USA. So initially it was just payroll, so we make checks for companies and pay their taxes. It's kind of expanded into the new catchphrase is human capital management. So our big competitors are like ADP and Paychex. That's our companies that we compete against. But what we do is we basically deal with small companies and say, hey, we're going to generate payments for your employees and pay their taxes, and then obviously you pay us for that.
Sounds like they're doing yard work at your...
Yeah, no, I can close the door. Let me close that really quickly.
Okay.
So I was just thinking, I was like, I had the door open and there was nobody all yesterday. 1 second.
Okay. Well, that's the great thing about doing a podcast. You can just improvise.
Jeez.
I guess I should keep talking, huh?
No, sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm talking to.
I didn't anticipate that they would just all of a sudden start going to town on the anyway.
Well, it's California, man. You got to get the yard maintenance in. It wouldn't be filming or anything in California if you didn't have a leaf blower going.
Yeah. All right.
summers in Nantucket, because that had a lot to do with Hoyt's story of what happened in his life. What were they like for you, and what were some of your best memories or worst memories of being there?
Yeah, I don't think I had a lot of worst memories. I mean, I really kind of that place is a special place. I got married there. I mean, this last summer we spent 8 weeks in Nantucket. Was one of the fortunes or one of the benefits of COVID is being able to work from home. So I worked from Nantucket this summer. I love that place. So I think it's growing up. What happened when we were very young? My uncle and aunt helped my father buy a home in a neighborhood. My uncle had inherited some money and said, "Hey, why don't you take a little bit of this money and buy a home in the same neighborhood?" So we grew up 2 doors down from our cousins. So there were 6 in our family. They had 4 children. So there's 10 of us. Unfortunately, the person that lived between us were retired school teachers. I felt bad for them, but them's the breaks. So that same dynamic also exists in Nantucket. We had a house in Nantucket. My cousins had a house in Nantucket. We lived about a mile apart. So the whole summer was spent, time with siblings and cousins. We'd always get jobs. I started working when I was 13 years old. Worked at a little, restaurant, squeezing orange juice. I was really good at squeezing orange juice. Love that stuff. And, bike around, beach, boat, sailing. And then, there's a great social scene. So for me, my brother John was there was a great story. So he was older than I was. So he was always doing things that I was admired. Excuse me. So I was always looking up to him. He always seemed to be doing the cool thing. He always seemed to have women around him all the time. So that was always like exciting for someone that was, especially when I was 12, he was 18. I remember that we made one plan that summer, like, hey, we'll get together. So we had a cousin in between us, Steven, who was 15. So he was 3 years older than me and 3 years younger than John. So the 3 of us were like, we're going to go to the beach. We're going to ride waves. That was going to be our thing. We're going to have a lot of fun. So we finally get this done because this was a big deal to be able to spend time with my brother who was so much older than I was. And we get to this beach, pretty remote beach. We're having a great time. But apparently at some point during the day, earlier in the day, John had let this woman that he was dating, or who knows what was going on, know that he was going to be on the beach, but somewhere down the beach. So this woman walks, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles down the beach till she finally just comes across us. And then she's there. She hasn't even brought a bathing suit. She's just wearing clothes. And she just starts walking into the water just to see John. And I'm like, I need to pursue this. Whatever this is that he has, I want that. So I did spend a lot of my time in Nantucket, socializing, meeting people. That was a lot of fun. And so that made for great memories. And I think of it fondly. And I like I said, I spend as much time as I can there every summer currently. It's a little different, but with children and a wife and so forth, but it's still very great. I mean, boating, biking, beaches, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I grew up in South Carolina at the beach, and I started my first job at 11. So when you're at 13, and you tell people that today, and they think, like, wait, what? You went to work at 11? You went to work at 13? That's not even legal. Yeah. At beach towns in the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was legal.
Yeah, there was not a lot of rules. There was just,
And I love the fact that you said that whatever that is, I'm going to pursue that. I like that.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years pursuing that. It took a beautiful woman to kick me out of that mode. So. Yeah.
Well, after spending time with Hoyt, they still do the same thing. It's like, if you want to know where the pretty women are, you just go hang out with Hoyt. I mean, he's our John,
Yeah. No, he's still got some skills in that regard.
Yeah.
But I think he would trade a lot of that now if he could, I think he's been fortunate because he has lots of nephews and nieces to become, his pseudo children. But I think he would love to find the right person. So, but that's not always the way it works.
No, but he's on a good path. He's got some good movies coming out. He's doing well.
Oh yeah.
Now, I know that he's a diehard Eagles fan. How about you?
Oh yeah, I have season tickets. So I was at the Super Bowl last year. So John came and went to meet me there. I only had a ticket that for myself. So, but we all spent time, and then we actually when after that debacle of the end of the game, we drove back from Phoenix to Palm Desert, where I am now, to see his college roommate. So we spent a lot of time there. That was a good opportunity, the two of us, to kind of get past that loss. It was difficult.
So what, other than being in Pennsylvania, is that what attracted the family to being such an Eagles supporting team?
I don't know. I mean, so John was born in New York, but he moved when he was 2 to Philadelphia. And at some point, he picked up that fandom. And like I said, I pretty much modeled a lot of what I was interested in after what he was interested in. He's a big sci-fi nerd, as am I. He loves all the sports teams in Philadelphia. So do I, especially the Eagles. We're really kind of crazy like that. And then, it's a lot of things that he set up, I just try to follow, to be honest. And it's actually part of what's so interesting was that John will say that a lot of the stuff that he was dealing with, he would put on a front and was showing a lot of confidence. When he got involved with the Colts and so forth, and for him, he said it was a lot of insecurities there. But for me, I never noticed that. I just noticed him as just studly guy, doing everything right, succeeding athletically, academically, career-wise. I'm like, I just want to be like him. So he was my hero as a little kid growing up. I would always just try to do what he did, and for the most part, to be honest, it really worked out for me. I mean, that was a lot of good stuff, and a lot of how I've been able to be successful in business or anything is because just being comfortable socially, and that's always what John was. Just being able to meet anybody, talk to anybody. I mean, that's a skill set that's wonderful to have.
When kind of started coming to light what was going on with John's life, did it affect you? Did you realize what was happening? Not to get too far onto his story, but what happened to you?
Yeah, for sure. We kind of knew something was a little amiss. I spent time speaking to this guru, Frederick. He used to call me when I was 16, trying to also persuade me into the whole thing. I think I always joke that I think I was a little bit too cocky at that point in 16. I really was very, very self-assured, and I also knew just enough to think that I knew more than everybody else at that time. So Frederick telling me all these truths and beliefs and so forth, I was like, I think I know more than you, kind of thing. That was just the place I was in the world, so it just didn't really take to me. And then at one point, my parents or my mother caught me on the phone with him, and that was it. So we never talked again. But so I knew about the whole thing, and I actually went up to New York and was in that apartment and met Frederick. And that was an unusual experience, but it like I said, it didn't really, it just seemed like a weird thing, but it didn't seem like it was going to last. And then it kept going, and where it hit me for real was when I was in college, and at that point, I talk to John weekly now, and I talked to him a lot back when I was growing up, but the period of time when he was in the Colts, I didn't speak to him at all. He's kind of just out there. So basically from when he graduated from college in 1985 till about 1998, those 13 years, we barely spoke, and we just run across each other. So in this case, he had gotten this compound in Asheville or somewhere near in that area in North Carolina, and he was driving down with a buddy of his from the Colt, and I went to college in North Carolina. So he stopped over and, was going to see me, and I had some great times with him when I was younger, so I figured it'd be a fun time. We went out to Chapel Hill, but it wasn't the same John that I had known. So and he said something to me. He's like, you can pick your you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family, or something like that. Just basically saying that I'm forced upon him that he didn't pick me, and that was a little harsh at the time. And that's when I knew. I mean, that was kind of like, okay, well, something's wrong, but I can't do anything about it. Um, I know that my brother Rory tried to do some stuff, but it just didn't go very far.
Yeah, Hoyt, I mean, he's been very honest about it. And I've listened to several podcasts. And I said we've had dinner and several conversations about it. Your life today, you're a family man. I noticed on your Instagram, your son plays lacrosse. My son played lacrosse.
Yeah, I'm not great at keeping my Instagram up to date, but yeah, my son did play lacrosse. But no, I have twin boys. One is in actually New Mexico currently. He's on a semester abroad, but within the United States, kind of this semester where they camp and hike and stuff, which is right up his alley. And the other one is a junior at the University of Miami in Florida. So yeah, they're doing well. I mean, it was an exciting upbringing. Both of my children were born prematurely, so they were born less than 2 pounds.
Wow.
So the beginning part of their life was an exciting time, to say the least. But they're both doing well now. They're kind of both of the challenges of being part of that COVID generation. They were both kind of in or graduating from high school when COVID hit, and so I as much as John passed the social, trait to myself, my wife and I, who are both very social, have been unable to pass along that to our children. They're social, but not at the same degree. So it's an interesting, being a parent in these days where, kids are kind of a little bit on their phones too often, or don't get I can just go up to someone, ask them out, or talk to them. It's just not with the same ease that, it seemed like was available back when I was growing up.
Yeah, the generation that really went, like you were saying, your kids, the COVID really made a difference. My son's 23, and I don't know if maybe he got it from his mom, but he's very good at the same thing you and John. He can talk to anyone. He's very social. Even though he's on his phone too much, he's still in public. I love the fact that parents come up and go, "Your son is so polite and so this and so that," and it's like I'll take 1,000 of those versus, one kid going, "Hey, I like your son." But anyway, so. We're getting out of time, and I always like to end the podcast with one question. It is, what did I not ask or did we not cover that you really would like to share about whatever?
One of the things that has been fun about John kind of reemerging from the cold and kind of just becoming back to himself, it's a weird thing. You have this person your whole life, and then boom, is like this different person, and then he's back to the normal person again. But because of that, we've been able to, spend a lot of time. He's come to Eagles games. He comes, up to Nantucket every summer. But one of the fun parts was that John did do this movie that he produced and got out called Dumbbells. If you haven't seen it, I still find it pretty funny. I suppose I know all the characters, so that's a part of it. But I was able to go out and be part of that filming and be an extra in the movie, and now have a little IMDb page, which is pretty hilarious considering the little amount of work I've done in that industry. But so that was kind of a fun thing that, being part of someone that's been famous, to be able to, see what he does and spend time in California and see and hear some of the stories that he has still. It's been great.
Well, Christian, I really appreciate your time. For our listeners, if you want to Google Hoyt Richards, that's Christian's brother, and find out more about his story and his career and stuff, I encourage you to look it up. And Christian, hopefully in the future we'll bring guests back. Maybe we'll even be able to do brothers on here all at the same time. But I sincerely and truly appreciate your time today.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, are you still in South Carolina much?
I get back to visit, but I actually moved to San Antonio back in December of 2022. So
our one son goes to the University of, Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a cousin who graduated there. My son looked at it. He ended up going to University of South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
And go Gamecocks, Spurs up.
There you go. Our nephew went there as well, so we've been visited there. It's a great place as well. That's
yeah,
cool.
And he lives down in Charleston, so we still have family ties in South Carolina, and it's always going to be home. And it's like, Nantucket for you.
The Greenville Film Festival is always a fun event. So John was there last year. We had a great time. So,
well, it's been a pleasure. And again, I thank you for your time, and we will chat again soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Chip. Have a great day.
You too, Christian. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, I'd like to thank Christian for being here, and I'd like to thank our partners at Nelco Media for making Relatively Famous happen. We couldn't do it without them, couldn't do it without guests. If you happen to be a subscriber, or you just stumbled across this podcast, or you want to know more about us, keep following us. Cool thing is, if you are famous or you know someone famous that could be a guest, we would love to hear from you. And thank you for being part of Relatively Famous today.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.